USA 4, Panama 0. Goals from Pulisic, Altidore with a little P in parentheses next to it, and Bobby Wood. Great stuff. I hope everybody enjoyed it. This is the Total Soccer Show Quick Take, Hot Take. My name is Daryl Grove. Taylor Rockwell is not with me, but I did call up Bobby Warshaw. I called up Bobby Warshaw to get his immediate reaction to the game. I called him immediately after the final whistle. I kind of didn't warn him correctly that we were recording straight away, so I think I took him by surprise. But Bobby had some great thoughts on the game, and I really hope you enjoy them. I'll throw to that conversation in just a second, but I also want to remind you that Taylor and I will be back in the studio tomorrow morning. We're going to rewatch the game in detail and have sort of a longer analysis, a deeper tactical analysis of what we think happened in this game. But first, here's my conversation with Bobby Warshaw. Bobby.
Hey, man.
Hello. It's a win.
Yeah. You ready for my hour of non-analysis?
Well, I'm already recording because it's the Quick Take, Hot Take.
No.
So yes, I am ready for your non-analysis.
Oh man.
Let's start with the emotions.
Great.
Let's start with the emotions.
Yeah, they're great. I feel like we're about to go win a World Cup.
So, just so everyone knows what's happening, my understanding is you're still in Australia.
Yep.
And did you watch solo? Did you get did you have some friends who were willing to watch it in the morning?
I'm here with my friends who are not soccer people.
Oh, wow. So were they confused as to what was going on?
They were not as stressed. That's all I'll say. They were just soaking it in. Expecting this is what's supposed to happen every time.
Yeah, I got you. So was it a stressful morning for you?
Only because I was running around to bars I wasn't going to tell you this, but I was probably going to be pretty buzzed. I'm not now because the bars weren't showing the game because apparently there's a different ESPN here.
All right.
So yeah, I was running around
the bar's loss is Total Soccer Show's gain.
Yes, correct. Or not, or it's your loss. But we ended up watching online.
So you watched at home?
Yes.
All right. Yeah. So, okay, let's do it this way. I know that you said you didn't have any when you emailed me, you said you didn't have any deep tactical analysis, but that's okay for the Quick Take, Hot Take, because it's really about just, quick reactions to what you just saw.
Can I give you one this second? Sorry.
Go for it. Yeah.
They just showed Jeff Cameron applauding the fans, and he did not look stoked.
Oh,
everyone in that group applauded. It's always interesting because you didn't know if Bruce told him, if Cameron just because Cameron's just one game back, right? So you didn't know if he understood, but yeah, he did not look stoked there. Be interesting to see how that plays out.
And so yeah,
all right, sorry, keep going.
Yeah. Well, I was about to ask you about the starting lineup, and when you saw it, what did you think? And to me, that was the first thing that stood out because I'll be honest, I saw it's released not in formation, so you have to kind of unjumble the words in your head to make a shape out of just the names that come on the US Soccer tweet, right?
Yep. Isn't that annoying? Isn't it so infuriating how teams do that?
It is. I don't like it. I'd like to see a shape.
Videos. All I want to see is a lineup, and they're showing me the players stepping out of the shadows. I'm what the hell is this?
And even US Soccer were experimenting with it because today's was a GIF, so you had to wait a couple seconds to see the team. But I saw Gonzalez and I saw Biesler, and my head instantly went, "Oh, we're doing a back three." And then I started looking for Cameron's name, and then I was like, "Oh no, it's a back four, and the central defenders are Gonzalez and Biesler." So yeah, I haven't seen the footage you talked about with Jeff Cameron, but it was a surprise to me. Let's put it that way.
I have no good analysis for this. I have no sense. I can
why he did it?
I can give you the various things that I've seen from my experience on why you would bench a player like this. But for this specific scenario, I have no idea.
Is it because?
What's your take on it?
I think carved into a tree somewhere is Bruce Hart's Omar.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think
funny.
It's just, he's his guy, right? He's his centre-back that he trusts, and that's who, if he's choosing an army to go to war with, I think Bruce chooses Omar every time.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's what it comes down to, right? We don't think about this with coaches enough, right? Especially a guy like Bruce. Bruce talks like it's a player's game, but he trusts himself. And when a coach works so hard and thinks about all these little details to build a game plan, the last thing you want is a guy who might blow that up. And not saying that Cameron is that guy. He's not that guy. But the point is that you want players that will actually instill this thing you put your heart and soul into building, which is your style and your plan.
And then you did have that Jeff Cameron passing out of the back, giving the ball away, conceding a goal moment. That could be the thing that sort of maybe was one of the nails in his coffin for starting this game.
Yeah. And listen, I can't – this is not as specific to this scenario or to Cameron right now, but to give people a sense of what might happen in a team meeting or a locker room, right? Maybe Dave Sarachan or Kenny Arena, the assistant coaches, sit in a film session with Jeff, and they break down the previous game. And they say, Jeff, like, I don't think, what'd you see here? And Cameron says, I tried to get it through the lines. And the coaches say, we don't want you to go through the lines there. We want you to play it wide. And as a player, you get to, what makes you a good player is your belief in what you see, especially being a center back, right? It's like being quarterback. You've got a check down system. And if Cameron says in that meeting, listen, guys, like, I know what I saw. I made the right pass. And the assistant coaches are like, maybe we can't trust this guy. And again, this is not at all pertinent or specific to right now, but just people have a sense of what might lead to a player like that getting benched.
And the really weird thing is, when I was sort of thinking about who I would like to see starting, the reason I would always go Jeff Cameron in a game like this is because I thought Panama would be sort of packed in deep, and it would be all about having centre backs on the US team who could find a pass and maybe split the lines and find Pulisic or Nagbe or somebody like through the first line of Panamanian defence. You know what I'm saying? I would want a centre back to be putting that ball through there, and it turns out we didn't need to do that in the end.
Man, D, you were wrong. We were all wrong about Panama.
About what they were going to do.
Yeah.
I'm not
they doing?
I'm not 100% sure because Pulisic's goal is the 7th or 8th minute. So there's a chance that we were about to see them pack it all in, but then Pulisic blew it all up. Right? Suddenly they had to their game plan and start over.
God, that is so spot on. That it's likely that they wanted to come out and say, for 10 minutes we're going to fight, we're going to go mano a mano, we're not going to let them run all over us, and then they were going to sit deeper and weather the storm.
Yeah.
One thing, I do think that both Omar and Beasler are very good at passing between the lines, especially Beasler. It's funny because Beasler's gotten worse as he's gotten older, which is what center backs usually do the opposite. That 5 years ago, Beasler, if it was Tim Ream that set the original benchmark for MLS 2.0 passing through the lines, and then it was Beasler. Nobody in MLS could pass like Beasler could, especially from that left center back spot. And Omar is kind of in that next. So both of them can pass between the lines. Maybe not as well as Cameron, but they're both capable of it.
I never thought of Omar Gonzalez that way, but if you say it, I am very willing to believe you.
Yes, Omar. Yes, Omar can do it. You know who actually can do it? Here's like a sneaky one on MLS. Chris Schuler's amazing at it too. There's some players you just don't notice but they are very good at it. One more comment about. Can I give you my overarching takeaway as long as we're talking about Panama right now?
Absolutely. Selection? Yeah. Send it at me.
My big takeaway from this game is that Panama just played the slowest professional team I've ever seen in my life.
The guys they put on the field.
Have you ever seen a defense or middle of the field that looked as slow as Panama did tonight?
No, especially when Pulisic was running past them. It really looked like even if they tried to keep up with him, there was no chance of it happening. It was a lot of sort of almost like he was Roadrunner, and they were Wile E. Coyote, just sort of desperately grasping as he zooms past them.
Totally. I wish I could give you some really detail-oriented stuff, but as I'm watching this game, I'm just like, holy crap, these are the slowest professional. And I know it's harsh on them. It's maybe an off day and Pulisic is fast, but
yeah.
It just shows how important pace is in this sport.
Do you think that could be part of the team selection? Like the idea for the US was, all right, obviously Pulisic's fast, Nagbe's not too slow, Areola's definitely fast, Yedlin and Villafana, Bobby Wood's not slow either. Like suddenly you've got a lot of pace staring at you, and if you're Roman Torres and Felipe Beloy, maybe you're suddenly a bit worried about what's coming at you.
Absolutely. It was a weird thing about when Klinsmann came in. Klinsmann was all about pace. Remember, he played Agudelo. He loved Breck for his pace and athleticism. And then we went there 2 or 3 years when we actually had no pace. It would be like Bedoya on one side and Nagbe on the other and Josie and Wando or something up top. And we had zero pace. So it's funny that this Bruce, Fun Bruce, going electric.
That was it. So I made very minimal notes to talk to you because we're talking very, very soon after the final whistle. Literally on my TV screen, Pulisic is talking to Julie Stewart-Binks right now. So that's how close to the end of the game we are. I wrote down, ask Bobby about Fun Bruce, because for those who don't know, after the Costa Rica game, most people were down on the US. That you were the one that had the take that this was Fun Bruce Arena. He was trying to send out an attacking team against Costa Rica. And correct me if I'm paraphrasing incorrectly, but you sort of said, yes, it backfired, but this is what I want to see the United States doing.
Yes, they played on. This was such a front foot team. I can't even put into words. Because yes, Yedlin's a right back, but Yedlin is not. Both him and Villafana are not defenders, right? They are essentially 15 years ago, they both would have been wingers.
Yeah.
In modern football, and then with having Areola and Nagbe, like this was such an attacking team, especially for such a big game, such a front foot organization that, when we hired Bruce, we thought that he would, take his back 10 years and play
slow and steady,
reactive
right?
soccer. Yeah.
So
can we talk about Pulisic's best spot? Can you give me your take on whether he should be central or wide?
So, I mean, the evidence tonight is that he should be central, right? Because he scored and he was terrifying. He was terrifying Panama. The thing that worried me is, yes, fun Bruce, and yes, I enjoyed it in this game. But if we go up against a better team than Panama with just Michael Bradley sitting deep and then 3 attacking midfielders like left, centre and wide and then 2 forwards ahead, then Michael Bradley is going to get absolutely torn apart by whoever's coming at him. Whether it's, obviously if it was Germany or something coming through the middle, then he'd be in all kinds of trouble. But even sort of a team that's a little farther down the order, like maybe England. And I think England would have a field day with all those midfielders pushed high and just Michael Bradley to come out. And the thing that I noticed is, even though we were 2-0 up, there was definitely a spell before the third goal where Christian Pulisic seemed to be telling everybody to push high and Michael Bradley was pulling everybody deep. And there was a massive gap between the two of them, who are our 2 central midfielders. So I'm not convinced, even I'm talking after a 4-0 win, I'm not convinced of that as a partnership that can work in a game where the US is in trouble.
Dude, first of all, I want to be like, yeah, let's talk about Bradley at the holding mid then, especially in a setting like this, because you were spot on. There was a big gap. The other thing, because I know you always watch this game twice for your next show.
Yeah,
one thing I want
tomorrow
you to watch
morning I got
time,
Taylor in the office.
Yeah, one thing I want you to look for is, to me, this was very much a hunting. If there's different kinds of ways to defend, and to use the colloquial terms, right? There's the traditional way we think of Mourinho, where you sit in a block, you block out gaps, you take away channels, and you wait for the other team to mess up. There's a second Pep school, right, which is the hunting philosophy, right? Just get numbers around the ball. It doesn't matter if you vacate a certain spot of the field if they can't pick up their head, right? It's the oldest saying in soccer. Maybe not the oldest, but if the other team can't get the ball there, then you don't need to defend it. So what I saw tonight from Michael Bradley and the whole team was a hunting performance. Go see ball, go get ball, right? And Bradley left that crucial zone 14 in the middle of the field exposed a lot, but he is extraordinarily good at hunting the ball. And to me, this is an okay way for us to play. I'm okay with having Bradley, but I'm okay with having Bradley be alone as long as we're playing a hunting style. Yes, if we're trying to sit and we're asking Bradley to cut out lanes and take away channels and take away different sectors of that part of the field, we're in big trouble. But if we're saying, guys, go get it, and then Michael is stepping up and hunting the next spot, that's a philosophy I'm okay with us using.
So the way that we did it tonight, you would be sort of willing for us to do that, or happy that we were doing that against a more difficult opponent?
Yes. Well, here's my secondary point to that. I'm going really long-winded, but I do think this is important.
Yeah.
Americans, one thing I learned from playing abroad, both playing with them and just being in a European conversations, is that Americans are bad at angles and distances, if that makes sense. So we can do a lot of things really well, but we don't train our kids to understand the angle to block out a lane or to understand the distance to effectively block a certain passing radius, if that makes sense.
It does.
It's like you think of a goalie, right? Like, why does a goalie come out on a breakaway? It's to cut away the angles at goal. And it's the same thing when you're a midfielder or a forward, right? What is the exact angle I run at you at, or what is the right space I sit in at to effectively take away a gap? And American players in our youth system just aren't very good at doing that.
Is that true? But is that true all the way up to a men's senior team, national team level?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
That if I were to look at one thing not one thing, right, but even Josie and Michael, all these guys, if there's one thing that I do think that is just we don't discuss, I don't even know how to really show it on a whiteboard. It's just a little detail that other continents are better at than us right now.
Yeah.
And so the reason I say that is, how do we beat England or Italy or Spain? How do we beat any of these teams? Because you can't match up with them mano a mano, right? That's the biggest mistake any human can ever make, is to say, oh, they're better at us and we're just going to go try and take it to them, right? You've got to think about their inefficiencies. You've got to think about David versus Goliath. So what can we do to expose what we're better at and they're worse at? And in soccer, the idea is you generally sit in. If you're the worst team, soccer is beautiful because you can still find a way to win if you sit in. But with what I've just said, I'm not sure that the U.S. team is capable of sitting in given our weakness in developing players like that. As such, how do we expose them? And to me, it's go hunt. It's the opposite. It's if you're going to take the game to them in a new unorthodox way, go hunt it. Screw it. Let's play 7 pacey runners and just go hunt and chase. So
is there a difference between hunting and pressing? Or is it the same thing with a different term, or are you describing something slightly different to pressing?
So hunting is more instinctual, right? Pressing is he goes, you go. It's more machine orchestrated. And to me, hunting is a little bit more everyone steps to the next guy. You see a guy, you think he might be able to get it there. So you're right. It's really hard to press effectively without hunting, but to me, it's just the general mindset behind it. One is machine, it's pattern prepared, and the other is just instinctual. Can we hunt? What is the right time and place to get numbers around a certain ball?
Wow. So, Bobby, I really hope that this catches on, and maybe if this is a style that the US is going with, which is kind of what you're saying they did, right? Especially in the first half, maybe this phrase could catch on, and the US becomes a hunting team. I mean, America is known for hunting, right?
Yeah, I'm not positive about any of this, right? Like I would not, take this to my, to a gunfight. Okay. But Klinsmann was bad at managing in a lot of ways. But one thing that really let him down is that he thought he could just say, Josie or Bobby Wood, take away this guy, sit in this gap and do it. But the thing is, Americans don't have a natural instinct to get those gaps and to read those things. We need a little bit. We either need to go off our basic competitive instinct, especially this group, right? This group still grew up with baseball and basketball and high school. Like they still grew up with all these other things that weren't necessarily the soccer nuances.
That's interesting. This is slightly off topic, but we may have mentioned a couple of times that Taylor and I, we coach a team of adult men who some of them have never played the game before. And one of the weirdest challenges that we have is when we tell someone to mark someone, they'll often mark in front and not goal side.
What do you mean? Rephrase that question. I have something I was going to say to it, but it's a little different.
I'm asking if is there something that kids learn in baseball or basketball or throwing football that informs the way that you take up angles that then doesn't transfer over to soccer in some way?
I'm going to do this thing that I hate when other people do, but I don't have an answer to your question, but I'm going to answer a question that I do have an answer to that's kind of similar.
Please go for it.
I don't know. It's a really good question. But I will say, I do think the idea of goal side defending is in general overused and more often than not wrong.
Oh, okay.
That depending on where you are on the field, why would you stand behind the guy and let him get the ball and give him why not just stand in front of him so he can't get it? Nothing drives me more crazy as a player on throw-ins, right? Why do we always watch how often on throw-ins there's 2 players behind a player, and a throw-in you can't throw it that far, and at the professional level you can know who can throw it far. So why don't you just have one of those people step in front? So anyway, I'm a big proponent that we use the idea of goal side way too often, right?
Okay.
That especially in midfield, if you can find a way to block the lanes and be in front of someone, it's much more effective. So that doesn't properly answer what we're talking about, but
it's still
since I didn't know how to answer your first question.
It's still an interesting concept. Should we pivot back to the game then? Because I went through your tweets when we saw the lineup, and one of the things you said was you weren't convinced that Bobby Wood and Josie Altidore could necessarily put a good partnership together. And I wondered if you saw anything in tonight's game that made you feel better about that.
I'm not going to get lost in the immediacy of this game because they were both fantastic tonight, but I hesitate to get taken away by this single game because logically their pieces still don't match up unless – it was what we saw again tonight. Josie got a poacher's goal, but for the most part, he was kind of all over, right? He was pressing wide. He was receiving the ball deep. So I'm still not convinced that their pieces fit together unless Josie gets more comfortable in this legitimate second forward, kind of Terraquista role.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
What did you think of them?
I was confused by him as well, yeah, because obviously there's the I think a really good example is the first goal, right? So it's a Bobby Wood flick on, which is odd because then Bobby Wood is the deeper guy than Josie Altidore. So that's kind of slightly not how we expected it to be. And then technically Josie Altidore then gets the assist, right? Because he flicks it out to Pulisic, who takes it and scores for the first goal. But when you rewatch it, I think the Altidore ball to Pulisic is behind him, and Pulisic actually does really well to sort of lean his leg back and collect it from behind him and put it in front of him. So in that sense, Josie gets an assist, but it's not a good pass. And then he had a couple of chances where I think there was one early on where Altidore shot. Really early on, I think Pulisic set him up and Altidore shot, and Bobby Wood was screaming for the ball and looked really disappointed. So there were quite a few moments where it looked to me like it was a little concerning.
Yeah. They were great tonight. To take nothing away from them tonight, but I'm still not buying that stock because there's a body of evidence before that didn't work out well, and I still don't see the pieces fitting together logically.
But so my idea is that Bobby Wood could be the number 9 and like could be up high and sort of stretching the defense a little bit, or at least making them worry about him in behind. And then Josie is free to come deep and connect some passes and get involved that way. So to me, the pieces can fit together. We just kind of haven't seen it. But is there something I'm missing?
I agree. No, I'm with you on that. But how often does Josie play that role? Right? How often do we legitimately see Josie have the freedom to get it, to give it, to track, to come get and get the ball?
Yeah, not enough, I would say, yeah.
So maybe if Bruce can get that out of him, Josie becomes more comfortable. It's also the opposite too, right? Because a lot of the times that's Giovinco behind him at Toronto, and he has to be the higher one. Yeah. So I'm not sure how to reconcile these on a day-to-day basis.
On the plus side, he did Panenka a penalty, which I did not see come in at all. That maybe the most shocking thing of the night to me was that, because I was a little nervous, because he'd had a couple of shots that had been saved, right? So I was a little nervous about Josie taking that penalty, and I love the confidence of sort of chipping it straight into the roof of the net.
I saw a tweet that he apparently gave a shout out after the goal, gave a point to Brad Guzan. So a lot of the times you just know if a goalkeeper, most goalkeepers leave early or don't leave early, have a tendency. So it seems likely that someone had tipped him off that Pineda leaves early.
Okay,
at which point, as a professional goalie, so think about this, right? Maybe this is from Soccernomics or one of the books, but if a goalie leaves early at a professional level, if it's not upper 90 and you go to one side, he's going to save it, right? So at that point, if you know a goalie goes early and you commit to not going down the middle, you legitimately only have a 50% chance of scoring that goal. So if you think about it like that, going down the middle is not that risky of a decision.
The thing I thought was risky, though, is because it's a chip and he went quite high, it seemed there's always a chance of chipping it straight into the bar or even higher.
Did you? There's a brief second when you're like, "Oh no, let me just put it over."
I gripped the table. So I'm watching in the office, and I gripped the table like, "Oh no!" And then I celebrated, so it was all good.
I'm going to pivot to the game, but before the game, how do you think Lawless's comments played into this?
I like to imagine that they didn't, because the players are all super professional and not worried about it. But I've heard several of the players respond. Right, like didn't Bradley and Pulisic both had words earlier about sort of, we don't listen to that sort of stuff. We just take care of business, and we're not interested in what he has to say. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was a bit of a wake up call to it in some way. I'm not sure. I'm going around in circles here. I'm not quite sure if it fires people up or just annoys them or refocuses them. You have a theory?
I think it worked.
You think it worked?
Yes.
In what way? What did you see that suggests
even
that?
If they don't read it right, they all knew about it. They all heard something.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go into a topic here that I'm not sure I'm right on, but it's something I've been thinking about.
Yeah.
That for whatever reason, this group of players gets complacent, it appears, and they all are at their best when they're humbled and their back is against the wall, right? Josie has these ridiculous ups and downs in his career where he's great for 2 games, and for 10 games, like once we think he's great, he's mediocre. And then he's down in the dumps. We're all saying he should be benched, and then he's great again, right? And same with Michael Bradley. We're like, this dude is clearly – and it's this weird thing about Michael, right, where we all know he should be playing on this team. If you don't think that Michael has the ability to start on this team, then you've never watched a damn game of soccer in your life. And yet, how many times has he legitimately warranted that status from a performance, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I can see that.
And same with Howard lately, and same with Dempsey. All these guys, and Cameron, they're just ebbs and flows that seem to correlate directly with their level of confidence and their potential level of complacency.
So you think that Lallis calling them out, like, what sort of shakes them into thinking, well, I've got to refocus?
Yes. And the thing is, you and I were like, oh my God, these guys are not going to make the World Cup. And I can tell you the only thing that matters more to a player than World Cup is getting benched. right? And the second Lawless says, you guys don't deserve to be in the field, you don't deserve to be in the team, it would hurt these. Like, I almost bet you Jeff Cameron would want one of the team to lose. I mean, I shouldn't say this, right? I have no idea if Cameron's a good guy or a bad guy, but if I'm Cameron in that situation, I might almost want the team to lose rather than go to the World Cup, because I'm so that I got benched.
Right, you want to prove that you should be in there.
And fans think that's horrible, but the only reason you make this level is if you are that guy that gets pissed over getting benched.
Right, because you got to be hyper-competitive to win your spot.
Yeah. So my thought with the Lawless comments is that it's just, I don't know if it's true of all players, but these 4 or 5, the ones he identified, do have a track record of playing at their best when they're humbled.
That's interesting. I also wonder if there's a thing of, if being called out really does give you like a siege mentality for the team that maybe they weren't feeling. Because there's obviously the problem in the US, which I'm sure you're aware of, is that like the team is not in the mainstream media. Mm-hmm. Like Christian Pulisic was on 60 Minutes and all that kind of stuff, but that was sort of a first, and that was a weirdly big deal.
It almost broke our soccer Twitter, right?
Right, yeah. I saw a lot of people screenshotting texts from their mom saying soccer's made it in America, because there's people texting saying, hey, have you heard of this Christian kid? He plays on 60 Minutes. Yep. But I sort of feel like maybe in a weird way there's not enough pressure on the players, because it's not on the front page of the Washington Post or the New York Times, or it's not on, they're not all, like, soccer players aren't on TMZ. I mean, I know they were that once recently because of drinking in Orlando.
Are we allowed to talk about that too, or is that too off topic?
I mean, I wasn't planning to, but we could go there in a minute maybe. I want to focus on this Lallis thing for a bit.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if, because Lallis has that profile and he can sort of channel the energy maybe of calling players out, that it almost mimics some of the pressure you would get, say, if you were in England and suddenly you're on the front page of The Sun.
I cannot tell you how much I respect Alexi for doing what he did.
Oh, yeah?
What he did is so phenomenal that make no mistake about it. This does not help Alexi long term, I don't think, right? Like, U.S. soccer is at him. Like, Michael Cameraman is Bruce is Bradley, and like, these dudes will not respond to Alexi's text, right? They will not give him the access at this point, right? Like, Alexi sacrificed a lot to do, and I know people were like, oh, he's an entertainer, he's just trying to get attention. He already has attention, right? Like, he doesn't need to take this short-term gamble, and sacrifice long-term access.
I think
what he did,
it's about attention, but it's not attention for him. It's about focusing attention on the team. So it's kind of selfish. Yeah, you said biting the bullet. Yeah.
Alexi is such a smart media guy, right? He knows like what's good for his career. Like, he's not doing this. Like, I don't know about you. For me, whenever I get an idea, I text an editor. I'm like, this is the best idea ever out there, and I'm going to do it right now, and you're going to publish it in an hour. But Alexi is really good at the broad scheme of media and entertainment, and this was not a rash decision. He calculated all part of this, and to me, what he did is just he bit a bullet for the good of U.S. soccer.
And do you agree with that sort of siege mentality idea, that can be the thing that helps? Because the problem I was having with it is thinking of it as like Alexi Lallis criticised me for having tattoos, like refocuses people, suggests that they're not focused on the job of qualifying, which I don't think is ever true, right? They all obviously want to go to the World Cup, they want to get the job done. But I think maybe feeling like you're under pressure from the outside and you're being criticised by this sort of US soccer legend, I think does give you this sort of like, all right, we got to pull together and prove him wrong. It's almost like he can become the villain. So it's like the end of the Dark Knight. Like, he can become the villain so that everybody else can do better.
You're exactly. We don't say. I don't think in America we wouldn't say siege, right? What would we say? Like rallying point or. But you're exactly right.
All right, you guys never built castles, I guess, back in the day.
Yeah, I don't think siege is a word, but you're spot on. It was a rallying point for the team to come together and create a common enemy, like an us against the world.
Yeah, us against the world. Thing about Alexi's thing.
Yeah, the tattooed millionaires thing was like the low point of what Alexi did. I'm not exactly sure why he threw that in there.
Yeah, because tattoos applies to a lot of people now as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not me,
that was a
but
weird
a lot
knock.
of people. So, what was your favourite thing about the game tonight?
I'll say two things, right? One, that it was like fun and they won. I know I'm supposed to be on here to say soccer things, but
no,
I still think when I watch the US, I'm mostly a fan. And for one, it was fun to watch. It was exciting. And I feel like I can breathe again. Two, it was this, and I don't know. I feel like we know each other really well, D, but I don't know if this is true about you as a person yet. But I'm a big believer that if you're going to go down, just go down swinging.
Yeah.
Man, And I'm not sure that's right in life, but I'm like pretty content going about my life like that. But I'm fine to try things, and I'm fine to like try and improve and all this. But when it comes to it, like if I'm going down like, guns a-blazing. And I think that I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that that's how the U.S. played today.
Yeah, because it could have all gone wrong, right? But they still just went out there and had just Michael Bradley holding and all those attackers, and let's go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of my tweets, I was like, yeah, they are exposed right now, but they're exposed because they're chasing, because they're hunting, because they're aggressive, they're active. And, like, I don't know, maybe a better person than I can, like, think of a better way for whatever to go. But to me, that's the way I want my team to take on adversity and take on difficulty.
Wow. So I love that mentality. I wish I could say that I had the same thing. I would say, in terms of if I'm in a corner, kind of, I always want to make sure that I have given everything. Like I try to never have regrets about, I didn't do this and I could have, and there's some effort I could have put forward. But I think I'm also a little more small c conservative in terms of, like, I'm thinking like the maximum effort involves the maximum like thought of trying to do it the right way, which becomes less instinctual. Which, going back to what you said earlier about the US, they kind of did go more instinctual, right? More maybe gut instinct and let's just go for it.
Yeah. This is the thing that I if I could in my life, like if I do ever have any kind of soccer media career, it'd be this idea that, like, you just have no freaking idea how fast that game is until you're out there. Right? Like sometimes instead of doing the over top view, sometimes they put it like down on the ground, and somebody can you're like, holy shit, that guy closed him down so fast.
Yeah.
And it's like that every second of the game. So all these people are like, why are they playing stupid? Or like, what kind of rash challenge was that? It's like, dude, when you get on that field, there's a very few players in this world who could like be cerebral and think their way through and make adjustments. And most are just flying off muscle memory.
Yeah. So it's all like, learned, remembered things that you just have to then do in the moment.
Yeah.
I think
and the question is, like, how can you free players up to get the most out of that muscle memory, to get the muscle memory flying down the right neural pathways, to make them comfortable? Like,
do you have an answer for that?
That I do, but I feel like that's like a whole second book.
Okay.
On how like players are coached and.
Wow, so you're sort of thinking of an entirely new way to conceptualize how you prepare a team, and it's more about that approach.
Let me tell you this. So this is coming from a guy that has not yet coached like anything beyond like high school players.
Right.
When I was in Norway, I coached our like academy team. But I'm a big fan of your style and your system. Man, we've really missed the boat from this U.S. game now. I don't even know what we're talking about.
That's fine, no worries.
But yeah, your style, your system needs to maximize. Like, if this is one of the big efficiencies I think in world sport, right? Like, what's the one thing people talk about when they perform their best? They talk about getting in the flow state.
Yes.
They talk about being in the zone.
Yeah.
So, like, what the hell are we doing if not all of our efforts to get player into the zone?
Oh, I see. So you conceptualize it as that should be the number one job, is to just get everybody in that flow state.
So why do I believe in pressing? Why do I believe in chasing? Why do I believe in simple passes? For none other that they are the simplest decisions for your brain, and that your brain can just, like, if your brain just makes a simple thing and is always acting and not thinking, then it gets you into the flow. And if we are to concede that soccer is a game of like 6-second moments won and lost, then the way you achieve those is by like moments of brilliance, and they're more likely to happen when you're in the zone. So to me, like 98% of soccer is preparing your body and mind to capitalize on these crucial moments. And what makes you more likely to capitalize on the crucial moments, if not being in the flow state?
How about this then? I can bring it back to the game with Bobby Wood. So the penalty he won and the goal he scored, I would argue both of those were kind of or close to what looked like some sort of flow state, because Bobby Wood, to win the penalty, was out on the touchline with his back to goal with, I think, a couple of defenders around him. And the sensible thing would have been to just keep possession, maybe pass it backwards and build, maybe try and get down the other wing or through the middle. Instead, he just spun around with this weird skill and just drove straight at their defence and fought off Armando Cooper and won a penalty kick. And then for his goal, I think he just received and sort of like rolled his foot over the top of the ball. I'm not even sure he looked up, and then he just banged it in the bottom corner. And it definitely looked like a man who was just sort of just like naturally was doing that and not overthinking it.
Yeah. Instinctually. Yeah, you're spot on.
Ooh, okay. So, taking us back, what was the thing that you asked me to look for when we rewatched the game? Was it to see if there was the hunting thing happening, or was it something else?
Yes. Well, I would say to be even simpler than that, how often Bradley leaves that crucial zone, right?
How often does Bradley leave?
Like, screw it. Yeah, he exposes the 2 center backs.
I see. Okay, and you're saying that if it's a hunting thing, then he will be leaving it because he'll be going to just go hunt.
Yeah,
and leave his home.
Yeah, yeah. If you like look at just like watch Bradley. Like whenever Panama gets into the American third, just how often Bradley leaves that spot in front of his center backs and goes to hunt the ball.
So
some coaches would chastise him for that, but I'm okay with it.
My quick take memory of it is that everybody else was doing it and Bradley wasn't doing it like all the time, maybe 50% of the time, and that's when there were problems when it was stretched. The problem with the stretch happened when Bradley didn't go with them, and sort of winning the ball back happened when he did go with them. So I'm thinking what I might see is a Michael Bradley who's torn between the more cerebral and the more sort of instinctual hunting.
You're talking more in the attacking half when they're pressing forward and they're trying to go get the Panamanian defenders. I'm talking more in the U.S. half. Oh,
so you're talking about when the U.S. is defending, what does he do?
Yes, I'm talking a little bit more like reactive opposed to actually going and trying to get, pressure the Panamanian defenders.
Okay, I will definitely look for that tomorrow then.
But I think you're right, too, that there's definitely times when Josie or Pulisic or Wood would go, and I'm like, why is nobody else going with them?
So, I mean, is that maybe a thing that can be fine-tuned and suddenly we can have this sort of awesome US machine or like hunting machine that goes out for the World Cup? Like, are you confident that that's a thing that is only a couple tweaks away from being perfection? Or like, is tonight as good as it gets?
Two answers to that. One, I'm not sure any national team can really be a machine, right? You just don't have time.
Yeah, true.
Which is partially why I'm in favor of the hunting and just like go off your instincts and play players who have similar instincts.
Yeah.
Two is this as good as it gets. I don't know. That was a pretty bad Panama team tonight, right? Like let's put it this way, like Costa Rica, when Costa Rica won, we were like, dude, the U.S. gave that shit to them. And like there's some element of that tonight too. Like Panama was like way worse than the U.S. was in that Costa Rica game.
So did we underrate Costa Rica and overrate Panama? Maybe because we were so worried about Panama that we sort of... I know I watched a lot of footage and maybe started to worry too much about their defensive organization and stuff.
I saw maybe a Jeff Carlisle or a Paul Carr tweet. Somebody, Tanawal, saying that we hadn't beat Panama in a competitive game since 2013, including both Gold Cups and qualifying. So I don't think we undervalued Panama. Maybe we undervalued... Or maybe I don't think we overvalued Panama. Maybe we undervalued Costa Rica.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me. I was feeling confident against Costa Rica just because we'd been on that great run and we just got that tie at the Azteca and like everything was feeling good and it just felt like, all right, and now we just coast all the way to the World Cup. And then Urenia happened and we all had to rethink what was going on. Yeah. So, any closing thoughts, Bobby, before I publish this? Because hot take people are, looking to get their ears on.
They get it right away.
Yeah.
No, man, but I'll tease her that if I come on, I have like a longer conversation about the national team that's broader, but I have to like tease you just so I can get on another show in the next month.
Oh yeah, I mean you're welcome on here anytime.
So, but yeah, it's way more relevant, like almost just as out there as the other stuff I've said.
Okay.
So,
are you about to tease it now, or is it top secret?
Oh, that was my tease. They'll have to come back in a month next time I'm on to get it.
I see. Okay. I feel like you're learning the media. You're learning the media game, just like Alexi Lalas. You know how to play it.
You know how many times people ask me about the book, and I'll tell them a sentence and be like, "But you got to buy it to hear the rest. I can't do it justice."
Yeah, you don't want to give them the stories for free, right?
Yeah, right. So, but this was fun, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for accepting the call. I really appreciate it. It was good.
Yeah, this is great.